Welcome to this week's market drama. We'll begin with the S&P 500, which was down 0.8% for the week. NASDAQ was down even more, down 2% for the week. On the opposite side of the spectrum here, Dow Jones was up 0.7% for the week. So what gives, right? It seems that the tech-heavy index for NASDAQ was down a lot. Dow Jones was up. Well, let's look at the economic data that we received. We had U.S. second quarter GDP coming in at 2.8% for the quarter, much better than the 1.4 estimate. You strip out some of the noise because a lot of that outperformance came through inventory, which is just noise. But you look at personal consumption expenditures, which is essentially the consumer, and that did increase 2.3% for the quarter, right? So the consumer is holding up a decent enough number when it comes to economic growth. On the inflation side, we saw U.S. PCE June numbers come in. If you strip out food and energy, we did see 2.6% year over year inflation, which is the same growth that we saw in May, right? And it does show that inflation continues to move in the right direction. So those two things combined, economy holding up, inflation continue to cool off, paints a good picture for the Fed to now feel more confident lowering interest rates towards the tail end of this year or early next year. That has sparked a rally for a lot of the smaller companies that here in the United States, the small cap companies, that valuation remains in relative terms a lot cheaper than these large technology companies that essentially have secular growth, that we're not dependent on the economy as much. We're not dependent on kind of the factors such as interest rates, right? NVIDIA was not affected as much by interest rates. But if you look at the stocks that have not done well the last couple of days, such as NVIDIA, tells you some money's been taken off on those high flyers and rotated into the broader market, which is measured more by, let's say, Dow Jones, right? This more non-technology companies. So that's the story there. Going forward, we do have an election year this year, and so in November, we do have some noise around that, right? So some of the spark for small cap companies has been driven by the fact that in the polls, former President Trump moved up significantly prior to President Biden dropping off from the race. They called it the tariff trade, right? The mandate for former President Trump when it comes to international affairs is to put more tariffs. That tends to favor the smaller cap companies here, essentially kind of protecting them. So that has sparked that rally, right? So those are the two areas there to keep an eye on. There's noise from the election, but then there is the more underneath kind of surface trends, such as economy holding up and inflation cooling off. If that continues, we could continue to see this rotation from large technology stock companies to small valued or lower valued companies here in the United States. That's to be seen, but that is what's happening right now. Stay tuned for next week for more.